What's Next podcast. I'm Steve, your host. I've got a small little massage business here right here on Monterey Beach, and I run into the most interesting people, just amazing people, and I'm not able to talk to them, obviously, in a massage. I started this little podcast to sit down and talk with these super interesting people, and today is absolutely no exception. Jason Adelaars we have in the room today. Welcome, my friend.
Hi, how's it going? Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
This is a great opportunity.
Yeah, so tell everybody, how old a guy are you now?
I am about to turn 43.
43?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
What are you doing for a living now?
Right now, I have many jobs. I work as a project manager at the Monterey Bay Aquarium Research Institute, which makes me a kind of a general expert in ocean data technology.
Okay.
And so we do a lot of effort in supporting new development of ocean data systems to collect, information about whales and dolphins and fish and, all the things that people are like really important want to know about. And so that's the one job. I work as the chief technology officer for 2 ag tech companies focused on small scale hydroponic systems.
Okay.
Trying to make indoor farming more accessible to more people so that, people can take a small room, even something like this size, and make meaningful amounts of vegetables out of and sell or give away to their friends and family. And then my 4th job is like a consulting job. I help area organizations in collecting data about the environment around here. I've been collecting data from the environment around here for 15 years now.
Wow.
And so lately I've been working with the newly restored westernflyer from the John Steinbeck days.
Okay. They
did that trip down to the Sea of Cortez on the westernflyer. Well, that boat went on being a fishing boat after they chartered it down there. It went up to Alaska, went to Washington, it sank, it sat on the bottom for a while. And then a guy in mosslanding found it, he raised it, he had it restored. The thing is in immaculate condition now. It's now up in Mosslanding, and it's going to serve as like an education and outreach science platform for students to kind of get more students excited about ocean information. And so I've been helping them with some of their sensors and data systems and some of their technology, which has been a lot of fun.
Yeah, I've heard that story about that boat.
Yeah.
It was years and years ago I heard about it. I didn't know it was even here. I think I was in the Midwest when I heard about that. So it did sit on the bottom for a while, didn't it?
It did. Yeah. I think about a year or something.
No kidding.
Yeah. I mean, it went derelict and, but they chartered it. Ed Ricketts and John Steinbeck chartered it in like 1941 or something. And yeah, they did a multi-week sailing trip down to the Sea of Cortez, which at that time was like the wild freaking west of like, they had no idea what they were getting themselves into. Very little information was known about it. And so they just saw it as this like epic adventure to like learn some cool stuff. And they went down there and just like John Steinbeck obviously wrote that incredible book. And it was a national bestseller for quite some time. And so, now that made an impact on a lot of people. And now, there's kind of like a big fan group, about John Steinbeck and Ed Ricketts, because they were, they lived on Cannery Row, like right here. Right, yeah. And so it's kind of like our local history or something.
Yeah. That's so cool.
So anyone in like the marine sciences are like, Ed Ricketts is like super cool guy.
Yeah. I think we had to read one of his books when we were in high school or something. I forget which one it was. Mice and Men, I think.
Or Grapes of Wrath or
something like that. Yeah. So I didn't get too deep into that. Yeah. So where'd you grow up?
I grew up in Southern California.
Oh, did you?
Corona, Inland Empire, 909.
Represent.
And I grew up. I went to college in Riverside at UC Riverside.
Okay.
Lived there for a few more years until I was in my late 20s and just got really burned out on all the traffic and how hot it got in the summer. I'm kind of a big baby when it comes to really hot temperatures. And I was doing a lot of field work at the time. And I spent a lot of days, I got heat stressed many times working out there and then just sitting in traffic. I was spending 15, 20 hours a week sitting in traffic.
Dang.
And I was like, this ain't the way I want to live my life.
Right, right.
I ain't getting paid for this, and like this ain't the way I want to live my life.
Crazy.
And so and then I might have mentioned earlier is like I started scuba diving, and in that like opened up my eyes to like a whole new world out there.
Were you like a kid were you a kid that loved the ocean? Or I mean, I grew up all about shipwrecks and whales and anything about the ocean. I couldn't get enough of Jacques Cousteau. All that kind of stuff. That's going to be me someday. Ocean biology, marine biology, something like that. Were you that kind of kid? Or?
I was. So I was very, my parents had me in like the Boy Scouts.
Sure.
And so did a lot of outdoorsy stuff growing up.
Yeah.
I was also fortunate enough to grow up with a pool in the backyard. And so I was swimming by the time I was 2 years old.
Yeah.
And I've been in the water ever since.
Right.
And then, it was 45 minutes to the beach at that point. And so we used to just go to the beach all the time.
Right.
And then once I put that regulator in and that mask on, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I can breathe under here and then fly like a bird through the forest and everything.
It's crazy.
It was just like, boom.
Right.
All right, I got to pursue this. And so, so that made me pivot like my entire like thought and career. At the time I was doing like soil and groundwater chemistry stuff.
Oh, okay. Well, that's a good start to where you headed out.
And then I was like, all right, I want to learn everything about the ocean.
Yeah.
And so I've been doing that ever since.
No kidding.
And yeah, it's just been fantastic. Spent a lot of time underwater. Found a really great group of people that also, love this kind of stuff, learning and discovering and being curious about stuff that we don't know about.
Yeah.
That's just the fruit of life is just learning and gaining knowledge and everything.
Exactly. Right. Yeah. I got a buddy that he just retired from driving. He was captaining a science boat out of Mosslanding. So I guess there's a big science boat coming.
Yes.
Do you know about that?
Yes, that is the David Packard.
Yes, right. So they're going to get it now while he came out of retirement for a minute so he could run the regular shifts until the new captain goes and gets the new boat. Yeah. So that's probably happening right now.
I'm not sure if or when it has left Spain just yet, but I know it's imminent.
You guys got to be stoked.
And so I think it'll be here probably by April. I think it takes a month and a half or 2 months for it to come all the way through the Panama Canal.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Up the coast and everything. Right. So yeah, it's the anticipation has built quite a bit, and everyone's very excited.
Now, is that owned by a certain company? Are you going to be able to work on it?
That's going to be owned by the Monterey Bay Aquarium Research Institute.
It is.
It'll be parked in Mosslanding Harbor.
No kidding.
That thing will be a absolute behemoth.
It's a monster, isn't it? I heard it's a monster.
It's a monster. Very excited to see it. And it'll be a learning curve for everybody. But it'll open up a lot of possibilities for new ocean sciences.
Really?
It's got all of the latest and greatest in technology. And it's just going to be, the workhorse vessel for years to come.
Yeah. So tell me, what's going on with the ocean right now? Is it, you hear so much pollution and you hear so much, and I watch these third world countries and these cleaning efforts to try to, it's just bogged down with plastic on all of this, and it's just all pouring right out into the ocean.
Yeah.
And it's
a damn shame. Yeah, it's a damn shame, and getting that plastic out is very hard.
Yeah.
And it's very expensive, and then it's just like, who pays for it? And so, yeah, a lot of effort has gone into, they have these floating machines out there that they just go around and just like a lawnmower and just kind of suck everything up.
Yeah.
And so, but it's not even that, because that plastic starts off big and then over time it breaks down and it gets smaller and smaller and smaller. And then we're dealing with these microplastics, which I'm sure you heard in the news. It's like permeating into kind of everything, even our own bodies and in the vegetation. And like they're finding it in the air. Like it's kind of just everywhere. I feel like everywhere is plastic now.
I heard a guy say that every human being is walking around with at least a credit card worth of plastic inside of them right now.
I wouldn't doubt it.
It's like, I don't know if that's true or not, but it's like, wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the fish, they say it's right in the cells of the fish, and
yeah, we really shot ourselves in the foot with that one, I'd say. But
I think, I don't know it. I don't want to, what if we just stopped sending things that were in plastic to third world countries that don't have any way to dispose of the plastic other than just throw it in the river. You know, I mean, I know, how do you divide who goes what, you know, but
we've definitely set up this amazing distribution system to be able to send anything to anyone around the world, but you got to contain it
wrapped in plastic, right?
You know, for safety, you know, for safety of the product, or, you know, to avoid contamination along the way.
Right.
You know, it's just the thing. And, you know, and mainly it's just educating these third world countries that, like, you throw it on the ground, it's going to go somewhere. It's not just like out of sight, out of mind.
Right.
Like, that's going to transport somewhere else.
And when we're trying to figure out where your next meal's coming from, you just don't care.
It's not your problem.
You know, so we got to, you know, raising water raises all boats, I guess.
A lot of education goes into that. Yeah. And I think a lot of effort has gone into that as well. I've seen a lot of videos where they're doing a lot more mitigation of plastics and pollution in the rivers. They're trying to, like, filter a lot of it out, and at least send it to a landfill rather than having it just flush out. I think a lot of effort's been going into that, but, you know, there's still just tons and tons and tons of tons out there. And you know, and it's thousands of miles away from any land, and so it's just like, how do you even get out there to, like, pick it up?
So being a guy that's not educated on what you are, that seems to be, to me, the worst problem that's going on is the plastics. What would you say is the worst problems with the oceans?
Well, I think there's a number of other issues related more to, like, climate change and everything. The ocean is a heat sink, meaning that, like, as the atmosphere gets warmer, the ocean is getting warmer, and that kind of just, like, energizes everything up. And so that's what's kind of driving some of these more hectic weather events that we've been kind of having. And then the other issue with that is we have what's known as, like, ocean acidification and hypoxia. So
tell me about that. I don't know what that means.
So essentially, the higher CO2 concentrations in the atmosphere diffuses. Carbon diffuses into the ocean, and then there's, like, chemical reactions in the ocean, and that ultimately reduces the pH and makes it, like, slightly more acidic.
But carbon's good, right?
Well, it depends on who you are. And so if it runs through this chemical reaction, it alters the pH. Animals that require, like, calcium carbonate to be able to build shells or something, let's say, those things are impacted, because, like, if it's slightly more acidic, those cells are going to dissolve and everything. And so, you know, you might think, oh, well, like, so what about, like, one small little, like, snail or whatever that floats around in the middle of the ocean? We'll, like, multiply that by, like, billions of them that are, like, existing everywhere, and they're, like, a core component of, like, an ecosystem. You know, we think about it as, like, the food chain. You know, there's these linkages of food chain going from, like, the smallest thing to the biggest thing, and it's a transfer of energy up that food chain. And so if you break links in that, it can cause all kinds of things to, like, get out of whack. And so, yeah, you know, carbon or whatever might be good for some things, but it might not be great for other things. And so it's just, like, trying
to rapid of a change is what you're saying? Or?
Yeah.
Because you look back at the dinosaur days, it's like, what are we at? 4.3 carbon per gajillion or whatever. Back then it was 6.7. We had no ice on this planet. We were still here. We lived. You know, everything was super green. Like, where does it start going bad with the carbon?
Oh, at what level?
Yeah,
you know,
I mean, it
interesting.
Seems like, you know, at huge carbon levels, there were 30-foot animals running around. It's like, it must have been good. More oxygen back then, more carbon, more, you know. So I'd kind of lose. I need a scientist to explain that to me.
Yeah, so, like, you know, the more carbon in the atmosphere, obviously it's gonna cause more growth, you know, on
greenery,
the surface and everything. And I like to think of it as, like, we are all everything, every atom in this earth is, like, in balance, you know, and that includes the air and our bodies and the trees and the ground, and, like, everything is, like, in this fine balance. And it exists in that way, and it, you know, and as things change, if you take one element and you change its concentration really fast, everything else has to kind of rearrange all around it to be able to, like, you know, find another equilibrium. And so right now, one of those things that's changing really fast is that carbon. And so now everything else is like going out of whack and kind of finding this new like equilibrium, and like, what is that going to look like in 500 years or 1,000 years or even in 5 years?
Right.
Like, it's really hard to like say like what that's going to be.
Right. So they say the earth is getting greener it's like, well, I don't know if that's a bad thing. Maybe it's just changing too fast. I see.
Yeah.
I get it.
It could be getting greater in some spots and also just hotter, and browner in other spots.
Yeah.
It's hard to really tell those kinds of things.
Right. My daughter just sent me a text. It's 7 below 0 right now in Michigan.
Yeah, I just was reading in like
freaking bird. It's not getting any warmer, bro.
Texas, there's snow in Houston, and I'm like, there's fires in California and snow in Houston, and it's like, what's going on?
What's going on? Right.
It's wild times.
What was your first dive?
My first dive, let's see. I got my checkout dive certified in Avalon in Catalina Island, which was really freaking cool.
What?
Yeah, that was incredible. My first dive here was at North Monastery, which is like still my favorite site.
Is it?
And because you can be in the water and you can swim for like 10 minutes and be in 100+ feet of water.
Right.
And you can kind of just look down this like
going.
cliff,
Yeah.
basically into the
Right.
dark. And that was just like thrilling. And then on that dive, I saw 2 ocean sunfish, molas, swimming around. And I'm like, oh my God, this is like amazing.
Right.
And then I was thinking, man, this must happen like all the time. And like, no, I didn't see one for like years after that. They're very rare.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was really cool.
I was on the committee boat for the Wednesday sailboat race out here. It was a couple years ago now, but there was a sunfish floating on the top of the water. And I'm like, what in the heck is that thing? And we went over close to it, and he's like, yeah, you can't eat those because they're all bones.
Yeah.
He's
but
like,
they can be like the size of this table.
Right. He just lays there on the top of the water and collects the sunlight. Is that what it's doing? Must be sunfish.
I think like, birds will like pick at the microbes or whatever. I don't, they get cleaned or whatever.
Yeah,
I'm not certain why they lay on the surface like that, but I don't know, it's some interesting thing that they do.
Yeah.
I've seen in years past, like a lot of them will show up and they'll be like small. They'll be like dinner plate sized. And the sea lions go crazy for them and they look at them like toys. And,
really?
And we'll be like sitting on the surface and we'll see them like a sunfish just like frisbee and like across the surface of the ocean. And these sea lions are just like playing with them like they're frisbees. It's really wild.
They're like dogs. They're like little kids, aren't they?
Like frat boys. I heard someone say they're like the frat boys of the ocean, and now I just can't unthink that.
That's the way it is from here on out. It's always funny as I'm taking my sailboat out. I've sold it now, but coming around the rock wall, and they're all laying there with their one fin up in the air. And they're like they're waving goodbye to you. Like, that's funny. Somebody was saying that's how they cool themselves. Just put one fin out, right?
Yeah. It's kind of like the same as like when you stick your leg out from under your sheets to like regulate your temperature. They're doing like the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My first dive was in Lake Superior. I went down on a shipwreck called the Dreadnought, and it was sitting about 50 feet of water. And we didn't get there till 10 o'clock at night. So it was the first night dive, first shipwreck dive,
oh boy,
first open water dive, that was amazing.
Wow.
That was amazing. So we got to see some, in Lake Superior, the wooden ships don't rot away. It's beautiful. Yeah. I mean, it's dark. So after you're even in the middle of the day, you're down below 20 feet, you start losing sunlight.
Oh, wow.
Maybe even less than that. So once you get down to 30 feet, you're in pitch black no matter what.
Weird. What's something on the surface that just blocks all the sunlight?
It must just be, it's just a murky water.
Huh. Okay. Yeah. So it's not very clear then.
It's not very clear at all. I think we had about 14 feet, I think is what the visibility was when we went down there. But as you're getting down towards the ship, you see where your light is. It's like, oh my God, I can start to see the outline, the railings around the ship. It was a 3-masted, I think they cut the masts off and they ran the steam engine pipes up through the mast holes to run steel iron ore, I guess, for bringing it down to Detroit to make engines out of it and stuff.
Wow.
But you could look at that thing and see what it was in its day when it had its masts on. It was like, man, that's really cool.
That's
for a first dive,
that's
night dive.
Cool.
Yeah.
Heck yeah.
That's
One of my most memorable dives was a wreck dive. I was in Bali, on the north side of Bali, and there's a wreck up there called the Libertywreck. And it's right offshore. You can throw a rock from shore and it'll land on the wreck, but it's in like it's so steeply sloping that it's like in 100 feet of water.
I see.
And in the morning we woke up to a 6.0 earthquake, because the volcano that was right over there was like threatening to erupt.
Okay.
And so we're like, do we go or do we not go? And so we talked to the dive guide and we're like, all right, let's go. Let's do it. You know, this was in late 2017. And so we went for it. We got on the water. We're doing this dive. This dive is incredible. It's like, you know, freaking 50 feet of visibility or more on this incredible wreck, a historic World War II era wreck. Tons of fish blowing around and everything. It was amazing. And then I'm like looking at this mantis shrimp, you know, hanging around, and like I hear this sound that like I feel it in my cells. It just like this reverberation, and it was as loud as if like a cruise ship was running into the ground like 30 feet away from me. This boom. And like we just all kind of like look at each other like, what the hell was that? And so we continue on like the dive and get back up to the surface, and we were like, what was that? Did you guys like notice anything? And they were like, yeah, there was an aftershock. Like while you guys were on the dive, and we were like, that's what it must have been, was like this freaking boom sound. It was the craziest thing.
You feel it when you're underwater.
Didn't feel it. I didn't. And the funny thing is, like, I didn't notice like the ground moving at all, but this sound, I'd never heard anything like it.
No
it was
kidding.
Just like an explosion.
Right through the
so
water too.
Cool.
Man.
It was unbelievably weird.
I want to say cool, but scary as heck.
It was scary. I was like, am I going to come up and just find everything on fire and like lava everywhere?
Where'd the boat go? Is it sinking by you?
Yeah. Oh man. No, it was a really, really cool dive. Very memorable moment.
Yeah. Right. So what kind of science are you doing now? You say collecting information now. What exactly do you collect, and what happens to it from there?
Well, so like going out and collecting data is like one thing. You know, we can go out and collect a bunch of temperature data or you know, salinity, or you know, whatever. And so the hard part is turning that data into like information that people can ingest and
That's
use
what I was wondering.
And everything.
Right.
And so we're trying to like figure out new streamlined ways into like making that happen. And so I'm more on the like technology side of it. I'm trying to like figure out how do we use this piece of technology to answer this question. And so one of like the primary use cases that we've been seeing is like offshore wind energy is a big thing, big question around the United States. And so especially around how we're going to monitor for the impacts of it. And so that's something we very much want to be conscious of. Yeah. And, you know, in California here, we take a lot of pride in our ocean environment. And so we want to make sure that if we go through with building this large scale infrastructure project in our waters, that like we're not wildly messing something up.
Well, they're wildly messing up the whales right now. I think 20 of them run ashore last year.
I mean, you know, it's
when there's only been 2 in the last 10 years. It's like because of those.
I don't know if it's those or if it's just there's so much activity going on out there, you know, and so like a lot of it's pointing to them getting entangled in fishing gear, which happens here all the time. And then just getting run over by boats, you know, there's boats just skirting around all over the place. I've seen videos of like, they can tag a whale's, you know, position. Yeah. And then like, they'll put the whale's position overlaid with like all the boat positions, and like, they'll just, you know, run it as a time series. And like, this whale is just like dodging boats, like left and right.
No kidding.
You know, and it's like, dude, it's like Frogger and traffic out there for these freaking poor whales. And so, you know, and plus a lot of them, they spend a lot of time at the surface. They're very slow moving. Right. And so if you have a vessel going 25 knots, you know, that ain't really looking all that much, dude, they'll freaking run right over that thing and probably not even notice it.
Exactly.
And so those are the things that we're concerned about. And, you know, the main thing here is we have a lot less vessel traffic than on the East Coast, but we also have a lot of fishing. And I, you know, I respect fishing. Sure. You know, I think, you know, we should be able to harvest, you know, food from the ocean and everything. But like, if we're getting these whales wrapped up in this stuff and they die as a result of it, it pisses everybody off.
Right, they get snagged on the bottom. They just cut the line and let the.
Oh yeah, and then they just swim off with this thing trailing behind them, like 600 feet of line or whatever, and that's just no good.
Shipwrecks that are just layers and layers of fishing nets over them because they get snagged and they just cut them.
Yeah,
it's like, and there they are.
Yeah,
just laying on the bottom. You know, of course,
derelict fishing gear. So we're trying to figure out ways to like minimize that.
There you go.
You know, and so we want to be able to get people out there fishing, but we need to make sure that we're not royally messing something up. You know, it's everyone's ocean out there, and so we all got to kind of participate in some ways,
right?
You know, and so I like eating crab just as much as anybody does, you know, but I also want to know that those whales out there are safe,
right?
So you know, because those things, they can go extinct, you know,
for sure.
And that's, we talk about the food chain, you know, and that's like, they're at the top of the food chain, and there's these very charismatic animals, and everyone loves them, and so we got to keep them safe, because if we don't look out for them, they, you know, who else is going to look out for them?
I think somebody was saying that was the only animal that came out of the water and then went back in.
Really?
Yeah. It's like they have legs and hands and fins, and they got up on shore. And it was like, yeah, no.
They got up there, they saw the dinosaurs, and they were like, I'm going to go
to the ocean, inside. Learn how to breathe out the back of my head.
Yeah.
So you never know. It just changes along.
Yeah.
So tell me, what was your first car?
My first car was...
I got to get to know you, man. I'm a Detroit guy.
My first car was an '83 Volvo.
Okay.
And it was
like a heavy sucker.
Yeah. My dad, when I turned like 16 and I got my license and everything, he comes out to I was sitting in the backyard, laying in the pool, you know, summertime, just like kicking back.
Yeah.
And my dad comes out and he goes, "Come outside," and he's like, points me to this car on the back of a trailer, and he's like, "Someone just gave us this car. Get a job, make sure it works, get to work." You know?
Really?
And so I was like, "Oh, I guess summer fun is over."
Yeah, right.
I've just been working ever since.
But I got a new car. So.
I got a car, and so you know, the thing was a piece of crap. I put a lot of effort into making it still run.
And then you totaled it.
No, I sold it.
Did you?
After a few years, but what I loved about it is at the same time he told me to go intern at a mechanic, which I think is a great idea to tell a 16-year-old kid, go freaking work in a mechanic for free. And like, I learned how to do brakes. I didn't, you know, he was just like, go get good experience, go after school and freaking get experience. And so I did brakes, I pulled engines, I freaking did all this stuff. I got really confident around working on cars.
No kidding.
And I've been doing all of my own car work like ever since.
Man.
And just thinking about the like tens of thousands of dollars I probably saved over the years in car maintenance.
Oh my God.
Is like incredible. And so yeah, that car, you know, through all of its frustrations and everything, you know, it really like taught me a lot about being like self-sufficient.
Sure.
You know?
Right.
Which I think is really important.
We were just talking about that earlier. It's like, oh, you know how to mess with cars? It's like, not really. I kind of grew up in a lumber company. I just fake it. I try to figure out motors, but I don't know that much about it. I'm trying to feel my way through it, you know, but I just love cars.
Yeah.
You know, I'll just keep breaking stuff until I fix them.
Exactly. Now so my last car that I had a Honda Element for 15 years.
Wow.
I put like 300,000.
Is that the square one?
The boxy one.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Loved that thing.
Really?
15 years, put 300,000 miles on it.
Wow.
And then it like blew a head gasket last year. Had to get rid of it. And then I got an electric vehicle.
Did you?
And this thing is like zero maintenance. It is incredible. I think this thing has cost me a couple $100 in the year that I've owned it.
No kidding.
And that's in like charging it and like everything.
Right. It's fast as hell.
It's so fast.
Oh my God.
And like, you know, I'm just, this thing is like a rocket ship compared to like my old clunker that I had. And I love it.
Right. Would you end up getting the Mustang or the?
No, the Ioniq 5. It's Hyundai. It's kind of a little sportier, you know, 4-door.
Is that a Korean type thing or?
Korean car.
Korean, yeah. Okay.
It was really affordable.
Yeah.
Basically, what I was spending in gas, because I drive a lot, what I was spending in gas on the Element is what I'm like paying in a car payment right now. It's like wild.
Yeah, right.
And so my insurance went up a lot because brand new cars can have more insurance, obviously. But in registration is like way freaking more. But hey, like, it's really cool.
Pretty good distance on it now, or?
Yeah, I'll drive to Southern California to go visit family.
Get out of here.
And like,
really?
I'll stop and charge like twice.
Oh,
Like,
okay.
I have two spots that I know I'm going to stop at,
right.
And I just like factor that in,
Sure.
And each stop takes like 20 minutes maybe,
yeah.
So it's like really not that big of a
yeah,
deal.
right.
And like I said, what came with the car, and I don't know if this is like a deal for everybody, but when I leased this car, it came with like 2 years free charging at all the Electrify America stations. And so like I hit these stations every single time because it doesn't cost me anything.
Right.
And it's like, I'm like, what's this deal? I'm not expecting to have that last forever.
Can you charge it at work too, or?
I can charge it at work. I live in an ADU, so I can't charge it at home.
Yeah.
I charge at work, and then I charge like up by the Safeway in PG if I need to. And it's a freaking
what a deal.
Killer deal.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You're digging it, huh?
So,
plenty of room.
I got to get rid of it at the end of the year, and I'm starting to like look at what I want to get next, and so I have no idea what I want to get at this point. But we'll see.
I had a guy who was just talking up that Mustang. He just got one of those, just loving it.
Yeah,
just loving it.
Nice.
I'm a gas guy, so it's like I'm getting it. It's American made.
Yeah,
I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
I don't know. That fire kind of scared me away from the batteries for a little bit.
Dude.
What's going on up there, bro?
So like, I was up there when it started.
Yeah.
When I evacuated out of my building at 6:00 that night,
were you?
and like looking right at the fire and everything, and was like, oh shit, this is gonna be a big deal. And yeah, the fact that like they didn't know how to put it out is like wild to me. And then it burned for 2 days, and then it smoked for another 2 days.
Right.
And we've been given the all clear to go back up there. They say the air is safe or whatever. And I'm like very skeptical. I'm not going to go up there.
I cry bullshit.
I'm really, really freaking confident.
Right. I kind of understand what she's saying at the EPA. If the fire is that hot, then it's literally burning the chemicals before they come out of the fire. Okay, maybe that's true, but now it's just been sitting there smoldering for 3 days or more.
Yeah.
There's no hot flames coming out of it. There's still the batteries. I think they said 10% are still there. They can't go in yet because they don't know if those are stable. It'd be better if they all would have burned, but now they're trying to figure out.
Yeah.
So
I don't like it. I want to be confident that like we didn't have nettles in ash like spread all over the place. Before we go back up there and start touching things.
So what about the slough? Mm-hmm. So that's highly protected. Mm-hmm. So they dropped this battery right in the middle of it. Like, what do you think about that? That's like, they put all these nuclear reactors on the fault lines. It's like,
yeah.
I mean, what are you guys thinking?
I don't know. I don't know how like that whole process went. There must have been public meetings. This must all happened. That battery facility was built, I think, in like 5 some years ago or something, right?
Something.
I don't really remember how that all came to be.
Yeah. As crazy as California is about, the technology and, the just saving the environment. It's like they seem to be making some bad decisions.
We're trying to be the early adopters to.
I don't mean to laugh,
things,
but it's like, it's frustrating, right?
And to be the early adopter, you're gonna deal with some shit,
right?
And this is unfortunately one of those instances.
Think they'll replace that, or you think they'll just get it out of there? That's a second fire in 2 years.
I don't know. We'll see what they do. I can't imagine the company Vistra like being financially savable. Like, I'm sure they're going to get all kinds of lawsuits.
Right.
They're going to have to mitigate this whole thing. They're going to have to probably, the soil, that land on the property is probably heavily fucked up.
It's
and
gone.
like, it's so they got to figure that out.
Right in the center of Monterey Bay.
Yep.
Right in the center. I mean,
yep.
That hurts.
It's not good.
That's not good.
No, no one's happy about it. I'm really not happy about it.
I know. So, but they say it's safe, so we got to go with them.
I'm gonna trust my gut on this one.
right, exactly.
I'll give it a week before I go back to work, I think. And and I'd be more comfortable if like we had a bunch of rain or something, and I don't see any rain on the forecast, and at least like
right into the slough,
wash some of that stuff out of there.
Yeah. I know. I was like, I'm so glad they're not spraying water on that thing, because it would just be running right out into the ocean with all that and into the slough. Just let it burn.
Yeah. Whoever can figure out how to put out one of those fires is going to be a really wealthy person someday.
Seemed like it'd be some foam or something. It seemed like the more stuff you put on it, the hotter it gets.
I was like, if you cut off its oxygen supply, wouldn't that help? I read that it generates its own oxygen, and that's why it becomes like a runaway fire.
Right.
And so I was like, can you just dump like a mountain of sand on it or something and just smother it out? Right. But it must just like sit there and just keep going. I don't know. It's not ideal.
Not ideal. Right.
Not ideal.
Yeah, we'll fix that.
Yeah.
What else you got going on?
What else? I mean, so the hydroponic systems.
Oh, that's what I want to talk about.
I love hydroponic systems. I've been messing around with them for a few years, and trying to launch some new technology.
Really?
To kind of help small growers, average people grow indoor, vegetables, fruits, cannabis, or whatever, so they can turn it into like kind of a little gig. And right now, hydroponics is like a very young industry. People who had only been doing it for like 20, 30 years. And it's been really inefficient. But through technology improvements, we've been making it more efficient. And it's like, I think we're close to actually making it like profitable. And so you're starting to see some like hydroponically grown lettuces in the grocery store, but it's still like double, if not triple, the cost of like something grown in the field.
I see.
But I think that cost is coming down, and I'm hoping to push that a little bit further and bringing the cost down. And my main thing is we're very fortunate here in Monterey, where we're literally living next to the fields where all the lettuce is grown.
Right.
And so we have access to everything, but a lot of other parts in the country don't have access to fresh vegetables.
Exactly.
And so I want to be able to enable like people to be able to grow food closer to where they're eating it. Because I believe in keeping things local and supporting the local economy and, making your community stronger and everything. And so food is just a great way to do that, I think. And so that's something I want to push forward. I think it's something I'm going to be moving on in the next few years here, and we'll see how it goes. I would love to venture out and start my own company is kind of the goal. And so it's just slowly chipping away at that. So I like during the day I go work in ocean sciences, and I come home and then I toil in my
Earth
kitchen. And so it's just someday something will hit and I'll go on that. But
what's driving the price up on that? You just have to find a way to get the sunlight to the plants.
Yeah.
Without the electricity.
Electricity
right?
is the expensive piece of that.
Right. So when I was building houses, they used to have these skylights that you can mount them inside of your bathroom, and then it goes through a tube and it goes up out of the ceiling, and somehow that light comes through that tube, and you wouldn't know that it's not a skylight. So it's like there are ways to get the light to without costing any electricity. I don't know if it's not as bright as sunlight, obviously, but
still something.
It's something.
Yeah.
Right. Even if you could cover half.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. And that's where I'm looking for is like those interesting little tricks to like,
there you go,
bring in some light, because obviously you're growing all indoors. And so, if you have to flood the room with a bunch of LEDs, like that's going to be a huge cost.
That's the main expense.
And so, it's that and like controlling the temperature.
Right.
And so looking for ways to like optimize and improve that.
Yeah.
And trying to challenge some of the norms of like hydroponics of like, they're always like, give the plants 18 hours of sunlight or whatever of light. And I'm just like, okay, well, like what if we went for 12,
Right.
And so that's like a 50% reduction in freaking, in costs right there.
I remember about 15 years ago, Detroit's kind of on a downswing. I guess it's up on an upswing then, but 15 years ago, it was on a pretty low downswing.
Yeah.
And there was a company saying, there are skyscrapers everywhere that are empty. Is there any way that we could just turn that into one huge hydroponic, top to bottom? You could feed you could feed the country, with a couple of dozen empty skyscrapers, and just grow all the food in there. It could be 10 below zero outside, and you're still growing the beautiful vegetables on these buildings that are just basically derelict, and they're not going to be used again ever, especially now after the COVID. Everybody's working at home. Those buildings are never coming back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so one of the companies that I'm the CTO for is the company called Vegg, and they are based out of Western Virginia.
Okay.
In a town called Pulaski. And what they did is they bought an abandoned elementary school.
No kidding.
And it's this town is kind of like an economically depressed region. In the past, their main economy was like coal and tobacco, and both of those things have kind of gone away in the last few decades. And so there's this elementary school that's been sitting empty for the last like 20 years. And so these guys bought it, and they're renovating it, and they're going to turn all of the individual classrooms into like hydroponic grow rooms that they can lease out to area farmers to come in and they can grow whatever they want. And then the main auditorium, they're going to set up as like a production facility. And then they'll be distributing that vegetables all up and down Appalachia. And so they're trying to make it this like economic redevelopment thing. And I just love the idea.
Oh, that's so cool.
Taking an old building and turning it into something that like grows food and brings the community together. I can't think of anything better than that. Like, that's just fantastic.
Perfect.
So and that's what I love to see is taking unused spaces and just like seeing what you can do out of it.
Right.
And
old school's even better too, because it's just one story. You could put as many skylights in that sucker as you want.
Exactly.
Get the sun going right through it.
Exactly.
Wow, but still heated in there.
Yeah, still a lot of effort. And over there they got to cool the room and everything. You can be like 100 degrees.
Right.
But we're working towards making improvements, and it's an ongoing project. And so hopefully soon we'll be growing some good food.
So what kind of hydroponics? What, like maybe beans? What the highest proteins?
Yeah.
What are you working on?
So the team has a lot of input from like Virginia Tech, where they do a lot of hydroponic research, and they're just like seeing what works and what doesn't. And so they're trying all kinds of different varieties, tomatoes, lettuces, beans, zucchinis and squashes and cucumbers. And
you just throw a potato over your shoulder and that sucker will start growing. So
some
are easy, but some aren't, right?
Those things grow like crazy.
Yeah.
I would really love, I'm trying out like radishes, and I have a little hydroponic system in my patio. So I'm trying radish and lettuce right now. I really want to try potatoes.
Yeah.
Because like, I don't know, I read somewhere that like with climate change, it's going to really like make it harder to grow potatoes. And I'm like, everyone loves potatoes.
I know.
So we got to make potatoes. And so I'm going to try that out. And just see, what else is out there.
Yeah.
I would love to be able to have us grow everything, and especially if it's like more like not expensive, but like products that return like a higher margin. Lettuces probably gonna have a low margin, tomatoes maybe a little bit better, but like cannabis we talk high margin thing. And so it's just finding those sweet spots and finding those way to optimize and everything, and just figure out what works best and everything. Right. But so we'll see how that goes.
Right. I had this old guy who was telling me that he used to take, back in the old days, they would take like a 55-gallon, like a wine barrel, and they would fill it halfway up with dirt, and then put potatoes, and then put another 6-8 inches of dirt, row of potatoes, another 6 inches of dirt. And by the end of the winter, they would dig down, and they would just keep digging down. By the end of the winter, they would, get all the potatoes out of that.
Wow.
But just in layers and layers and layers like that.
Yeah.
Like, genius.
Super simple.
Didn't even know, I figured it had to be this far from the surface, enough to get, clearly not. They'll just keep duplicating. They'll just keep.
It's the amazing thing about plants.
Awesome.
They just want to grow.
Yeah. I wanted to try that.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if that'll work or not. Was he bullshitting me?
It could, yeah.
Right.
If they seed and reseed, I've got a kale plant in my yard that I planted like over a year ago, went through a whole season of harvesting, overwintered. It's still there, and like I'm finding little sprouts around it now, and I'm like, look at me, I have a green thumb.
Broccoli's like that too. You keep coming back. It's like I didn't even plant that this year. It's like 3 years ago. It's coming up again.
Yeah,
you know. You can't kill that stuff with a stick.
So that's what I want to try to figure out. It's like, what is that like right optimal condition to make tomatoes grow, or potatoes or whatever.
Right. And
then if we can like find that out and dial it in, then we can just be like banging them out all year long.
Yeah, get 5 or 6 of them that match. Mm-hmm. This, and grow those in that particular environment. And then 5 or 6 that match the potato or whatever. And yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah.
You break down that science.
It's a lot of fun.
You're too smart, man.
I
can't talk to you anymore. You're too freaking smart.
I'm just like a knucklehead. I just like to knucklehead around in my kitchen and just like make stuff work and just figure stuff out.
Yeah.
I'm a problem solver.
So clearly you went to college.
Yes.
Where'd you go to college?
I went to undergrad in environmental sciences.
Of course.
In UC Riverside, and then I got my master's in marine ecology.
Oh, you got your master's?
From CSUMB.
Dang. Yeah. Oh, okay, right on. Yeah. CSUMB.
Yeah, right here.
Right
locally.
Here.
And so I've lived here the whole time, except for during COVID. I moved away because it got too expensive and it pissed me off.
Right.
And I moved to Charleston, South Carolina.
Did you really?
And lived there for 2 years. And it was
way too hot.
Wonderful.
Did you like it?
I did like it. It's a really cool city.
Sure.
Yeah, it's like one of the oldest cities in like the United States. It's like they landed there in like the late 1600s or something.
Yeah,
and so the very rich in history. For the good and the bad,
right,
and 2 wars were fought in that city: the Revolution and the Civil War, and then the epicenter of slavery and everything, and bringing enslaved people into the country, and then
is that where the boats docked?
Yeah,
is that where
they brought them and auctioned them off?
I didn't know that.
And everything. Shit. Yeah,
what town was that?
It's Charleston.
Charleston, no kidding.
Yeah, and then now it's just like this amazingly cool, like tons of great food scene, great music scene.
Yeah.
Cool little like different cities and everything that kind of around the region, surrounded by like cool marshland and great for kayaking, great for fishing.
No kidding.
I really like living there. And then I moved back because I've got 2 young nieces that live up in San Francisco, and so I didn't want to grow them growing up with me living on the other side of the country.
Right.
And so came back out here so I can be a little closer to them and be a part of their lives and everything. Nice. And no regrets there. They're awesome.
Yeah, right. How they doing in San Francisco?
They're good. Yeah. They, my sister and brother-in-law, they have a beautiful house.
Do they?
My sister's a lawyer. She got all the financial sense in my family.
Nice.
And she went out and became a lawyer and is making crap tons of money.
Yeah, right.
But they're doing great. And so, just kids being kids getting sick all the time. I think they just get sick all the time.
For sure.
I'm going to go see them this weekend. So I'm excited about it.
Get yourself sick.
Yeah.
I just went back and saw my 6 grandkids, and they're all take turns getting sick and just try not to get sick.
Yep.
That's the way it goes.
Just little germs.
Yep.
Just walking around germs.
Each one's going to a different school, so you have another 1,000 kids to deal with from where school they went from. Yeah. Oh, cool. When are you going to write a book, man?
When am I going to write a book? Oh, man, probably after I retire.
Yeah.
After I'm done. I figure I got like 20 more years of work in me, and then I'm hoping to begin that like transition into retirement.
Right.
Where like, okay, I only want to work if like I have to, or I don't want to have to work for money anymore.
Yeah.
I would love, my goal is to like be financially independent by the time I'm like 60 or 65.
It's not going to stop you from working though.
I know. I'm a very
you just wither
busy,
away and die if you did that, right?
But I see myself like volunteering around here or something.
Yeah.
Or as long as I'm able. You know, I would love. My goal in life is to live until I'm 100.
Sure.
And so 60 ain't it. I got to go another 40 years after that. So I got to like be ready. So I got to start preparing for that. So being financially independent is like a big ticket item for me, and then just being healthy, which I'm not super great at doing, but I'm working on it. I got too many things to do already. So
you'll get you'll get wealthy, and then you'll not be healthy.
Yep. Now
gotta have both.
I'll just do. I gotta start working out again.
Yeah.
Working out is hard. Finding time to work out is hard.
It's the getting going.
Yeah.
It's that first 3 weeks that I had to take some time off from my running because I blew a shoulder out. I just couldn't run and swing that arm, but I keep telling myself I'm going to get back into it. I'm jumping right back into it, and weeks go by and I don't. It's hard to get going again. That's what it is, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. I probably haven't worked out in like a year.
Really?
I would say. And I, lifted a little weights yesterday.
Did you?
I went for a run last week.
Hey, that's a start, man.
So I think, it's that planned inconsistency. Don't beat yourself up if you don't do it in a day, and just know we'll try again tomorrow.
Yeah.
Try again tomorrow. And so I think I'm just trying to like get back into that rhythm of doing it.
Right.
But yeah, it's
after a month or so, you're looking forward to getting to working out. But getting to that point.
Yeah. I think like at the end of the day yesterday when I did a little bit of weightlifting and I felt my heart rate up and everything, and I was like, okay, like I liked that.
Yeah.
Getting that heart rate up is good. And so I just got to be better about doing that on a weekly basis.
Right. The pain is good, but not at the first couple of weeks.
Yeah.
That's a different kind of pain.
Oh man. Yeah. And growing up, everyone was like, oh yeah, once you turn 40, like you just way harder. And I was just like, yeah.
Whatever.
Sure. And now I'm like 43 and I was like, fuck, they were right.
Like I'm going to make it to 40.
Right. Stuff's getting hard. I had this from right around like a year and a half ago, like my ability to handle alcohol just plummeted.
Really?
And like I barely drink anymore.
Sure.
Just because like I can have 2 drinks and feel like horribly hungover the next morning.
Really?
And I'm just like, what the?
Your system's like, yeah, no, we're not doing that anymore.
Yeah, no. And I'm like, all right, well, I guess I'm done with that.
Right.
And so. Yeah, well, whatever.
That's okay, too.
Saving a ton of money.
I know.
So it's kind of great.
Keep you out of the bars.
Yeah. So I guess that's life, huh?
That's life. Mm-hmm. You got any friends down in L.A.?
I do. Not
everybody okay down there?
None that were impacted by the fire. I've got a lot of friends in L.A. I was just down there visiting a bunch of friends in December. And I checked in on most of them.
Did you? Good.
None of them had said they were impacted or anything.
Yeah.
I mean, I have heard through my network of people getting displaced from that.
Yeah,
what a bad situation down there. Golly.
San Diego's on fire today.
Really?
Yeah. It's on the news this morning. Huge.
Brutal.
Come on, man.
Brutal.
What's happening? We need some water down here. Just standing around waiting for it to rain. Come on.
I know. And yeah, like we're a lot less rain this year than we were the last few years.
Yeah.
So I'm worried we're swinging back into that like drought kind of few years, and we'll just got to deal with it. And
I've always thought about this, and I don't know anything about ocean science or anything, but it hardly ever rains here. So like when it does rain really hard, doesn't like all of that wash right into the ocean all at once? You know what I'm saying? It's like off of the streets, like in your house, it's like I give 3 days and everything is covered in dust. I'm sure everything in this area is just covered in, everything from smoke from the cars and, and then all of a sudden you don't get a rain for 4 or 5 months and then you just get a gully washer. That's a Texas word, sorry. And it's just got to be terrible for the fish.
Yeah, so there are groups, nonprofits that exist that they call it First Flush, and
is that what it is? Yeah, right.
They get out there and they take water samples of that first amount of water that's going out, and then they analyze it for like all the chemicals and whatever.
Right.
And that way we have like some knowledge and like what is getting thrown out there.
Yeah.
And it all, for the most part, all the real bad stuff gets washed out that first time. You get a lot of sediment, you got a lot of oils and plastics and everything.
Yeah.
And then throughout the year, it's just like, it just keeps kind of more flushing out, but it's like, it's a little more fresh water.
Yeah. You hear about farm runoff, but it's like, as a city, what is that?
Yeah. No, I mean, it's everything you dump in your gutter.
I know, right?
So it's probably, all kinds of stuff, and incidental and trash and litter and freaking everything. So, yeah.
I had a guy on my podcast about, it must have been about 3 years ago, and he's a what do you call an angel investor in marine technology out of Boston. And he was telling me if I wanted to start a purple urchin farm, he would find people to pay for it. because of they're just destroying the kelp forests. So he's like, if you could start that and you could hire people to clean it, these zombie urchins, I guess is what they're called, once they run out of food and they just lay there on the bottom until the food grows back, and then they demolish it all over again. So it was like, I couldn't make that happen. I couldn't find a piece of land close enough to the ocean to be able to flush the water in and out.
Yeah. That's the hard part.
To do that.
You got to build right on the water,
Yeah.
And
good luck trying to build anything in California, even if it is trying to help the environment.
Yeah.
Yeah. The price of the land, the price of the, everything. I just could not make it work. But I had a guy here telling me, do it, man, and I'll find a way to pay for it.
Yeah.
Just to save our bay. So what's going on with that?
So urchins, so what happened was in 2012, I want to say, we had a disease that ran through all of the sea stars along our coast, from Washington all the way down the bottom of down that way. And so entire populations of sea stars just died.
Really?
Just in a month, gone. Like it was, and I was diving at the time, like weekly, daily.
Yeah.
And just watching just these big, huge,
I know which ones you're talking about.
Just like disintegrating in front of my eyes and just gone. It's gone. Haven't seen them since. It's been 12 years or whatever. And so those sea stars were major predators of urchins. And so because there's now a lot less sea stars, like I was saying, everything gets out of whack and everything's got to rebalance to it.
Right.
Because there's no sea stars, all the urchins started freaking going, hey, there's nothing eating us. Like, let's just go to town. And so they just started ripping through all the kelp forests along our coast, and that's been happening for a decade now.
Has it?
And along the north coast, it's been particularly bad. And then that's causing issues to abalone, because the abalone want to eat it, and they're being outcompeted by the urchins. Right. And so that's hurting our abalone fishery. And it's a huge deal. And I know teams locally and up in the north coast that are going out and with divers, and they try to collect up all of the urchins and just get them out of there. Or smash them. Yeah. And try to like rebalance that system, through human intervention. And there's degrees of success to that, but it's just really hard to scale,
It's just an ocean.
How do you get rid of millions and millions and millions of freaking urchins everywhere? And so
like you couldn't find what was killing the stars?
It was like a virus or something,
Jesus.
It was just like one of those weird things, like they think it was a virus. I didn't look too heavily into it, but it was just like
they were just coming apart, weren't they?
Yeah, they just wasted, just disintegrated. It was so weird.
Right.
Anyway, that is the deal with that. Now the problem, you'd think like, hey, we've got this abundance of this other thing that like, what can we do with it?
Yeah.
Hence why I'm sure your buddy was like, hey, is there a way we can like do something with this?
Right.
The problem is like they've done some research, and like the first thing I think about is, you use the uni. It's like the part of it that you can eat as a food. And in those urchins, it was just so small and so insignificant that like it wasn't even like worth it to grow.
Right.
And so we did some research up at Mosslanding Marine Labs to see if there's something that we can like feed them differently to like make that grow. I don't know how successful that project was. And so now we're still just like trying to freaking remove them.
Yeah.
And I'm like, like if someone can come up with like a use for them.
Well, I was talking to a buddy of mine. He's a major chef up in San Francisco, and he's in one of those big fancy restaurants. And I was telling him what I was thinking of doing. What I'm, he's like, hell yeah, I'll use those.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, how many is he going to use? You have to have a whole lot of restaurants to clean up that ocean. It's like, is there enough to sell or,
And so
I hate to be subsidied, but if I'm saving the ocean, then maybe I could get some kind of government subsidy or something.
I don't know how
if
that
we can't
works.
sell enough to the restaurants, we're still trying to save the planet here, guy.
Yeah.
Right?
I don't know how that works. The government works in mysterious ways.
Yeah,
I try not to understand it because it hurts my brain too much. But no, there is a group in Mosslanding that's doing research on growing and trying to reintroduce some of those sea stars that died away.
Okay.
And so I think we hope that like at this point that virus is like gone now.
That's what I'm thinking.
Maybe so not, now if we can start putting those sea stars back into the region, maybe they will start regrowing their population.
Is it a different one, or you found some healthy ones somewhere else?
Found some healthy ones. Good. And there's like, you know, small little groups around the country that are like, you're trying to figure this out. People work in aquariums and stuff like that. Right. And so yeah, it's the Sunflower Star Lab up in Mosslanding. It's a small little group. My buddy runs it. He's also partially worked for the abalone company here. He knows a lot about cooking food. He's a super cool guy. We've cooked a lot of food together, and so yeah, they're trying to remake these sunflower stars and get them out there. So they can let the animals take care of the urchins, so we don't have to worry about it.
Right. Yeah. Because that kelp forest is very important.
Very for fish populations and just for the kelp forests have tons of ecosystem goods and services for us. And plus, like, I just love diving in them, you know?
And you can eat that stuff too.
Oh yeah, 100%.
You know, people are growing that for food
100%.
And they're making a ton of money.
Yeah. Bull kelp, I've had it.
Is that what it is?
Bull kelp is like that grows in those big round tubes, and then there's the ball at the top. You can like slice that up and pickle it, and oh my god, it's like freaking pickles.
No kidding. Yeah,
super good.
Those are the ones that are like almost, they put docks out into the water and they have them between the docks. They're actually in the water, right? Mm-hmm. It's not like a fake, I don't know what you'd call it, a live aquarium kind of, you know, what they're doing with fish and stuff. It's not really on land. It literally is in the ocean. They
put it in the ocean, and there's many companies starting to grow algae in the ocean.
Really?
And they, you know, you put out some, you know, algae needs like a hard surface to grip onto, and then then so you put out some infrastructure, you kind of like plant it on there, and the stuff grows super fast.
Yeah. It's crazy. It grows like a foot and a half a day or something.
A day. Yeah. And crazy. So you know, they're like, okay, like let's see if we can make something out of this. And I think they're having a lot of success. I think in Maine, the state of Maine has a lot of success in growing it, and they're doing a lot of stuff out there. Well, Alaska as well too.
So it seems like a good spot for it.
Mm-hmm.
Alaska.
In Alaska, I bought some products up there that is made out of like kelp and algae and everything.
Oh, no kidding.
And so and then up at the Mosslanding, we've got the Monterey Bay seaweeds, and so they grow other types of marine algae for culinary purposes.
Oh, no kidding.
And this stuff, you know, it's like really freaking tasty. You put it on salads and whatever, and it's like got that nice salty like flavor to it, really great textures and everything. And it goes for a super high price.
No kidding.
It goes for like $30 a pound or something like that. Wow. And this stuff like just grows, and so they'll just harvest like half out of the tank, and then a week later it just grows back.
It's right back,
you know. And so they're just freaking pulling money right out of this tank.
Crazy. So what can you do with it though? You know, they have to kind of re-educate the chefs and you know, whoever's doing it.
Yeah.
With that urchin, I saw that guy busted an urchin open and just poured all the salt water into his mouth because it was full of like half digested seaweeds. And it was like straight protein. He said it was nice and salty like the ocean. It was like, that sounds really gross to me.
Yeah.
But that was a delicacy, man. He was like, oh yeah, this is, you know, like
it just takes one person to make it cool, right?
I know. You're right. I thought he was going to go after, I mean, he went after the meat also, you know, but that was a delicacy. That water that was in there, I was like, ooh, it's kind of the inside of an animal, bro.
Yeah.
But that was part of it.
Yep, absolutely. It's then I'm like, I'm that way with like oysters. I love people love oysters, and I'm just like, what is this? It's just like salty goo.
Like, why would you put this in your mouth? This is crazy.
It's not worth it to me. I'm not a big fan of oysters, but hey, you know, other people are like all about them,
right?
You know? So
I had an older brother, and he went off to college, and I'd go up and see him in college, and you know, they were cool. You know, they always had oysters Rockefeller, or oysters on the half shell. I was like, it was so gross, but you had to be cool. You know, I was like, so over time, I've learned to like them. You know, but you're right.
Well, the Rockefeller, isn't that where you just put a bunch of cheese on it? right? Or is like, and then you roast them or something?
I don't know.
I had one raw. Where they just dumped a bunch of Parmesan cheese on it and then threw it in the oven, and I was like, okay, this is the way to eat oysters.
Yeah, right.
So,
yeah, they're not terrible.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah, but no, I love fishing too. I love being able to go out on the water and just pull something right out of the water and go home and cook it up and eat it and everything. And, to me, that's like more of just keeping it local and, and getting your own food. I just love that concept.
I got to go fishing with you. I go fishing out here and I'm kind of scared of what the hell I might catch. I'm from the Great Lakes, it's like, I don't know what I'm going to haul in. I wouldn't know how to fillet.
What would you haul in? You got like pike and sturgeon
the small,
and walleye and everything
I'm more in
up there?
the small lakes. There's what's the one with all the teeth? The pike, muskellunges, and all the mostly bluegills, perch, bass, smallmouth, largemouth bass. I mean, that's what I grew up chasing after. But I used to go down to Florida and do the deep sea fishing once a year, and we'd haul in snappers and gropers. And that's on the other side of the country though. So, over here, like people say, these striped beach bass, I guess, or something. They're supposed to be tasty.
Striped bass are good. Rockfish, generally rockfish are just good for fish tacos. Lingcod are also great. They have nice bigger fillets. I've done a lot of like ceviche with them.
Oh, right.
And yeah, it's good fishing around here.
Just got a new set of hip waders for Christmas. I'm going to go out and try fishing off the beach here.
Yeah.
Got some new gear and a new reel, and see if I can get it out there. And
it's fun to just have hobbies.
Just play around. I don't even know what I'm going to catch or what to catch it with, but we just keep switching it out and having fun.
I'd like to say is like, even if you don't catch anything, you're still outside enjoying nature.
You got that.
And having a good time. And it's good for the mental health. It's good for the old energy and vibes and everything. So ain't nothing wrong with that.
Better for my mental health if I caught something, though. Well, thank you so much for coming in today. We've learned a ton.
Great. I'm glad.
Awesome.
Yeah. I hope, always happy to chat. It's always fun, like connecting with people.
Yeah, right.
And, and I can gab on about whatever subject, for days.
Right.
So,
people are writing the comments, why didn't you ask this? Why didn't you ask that? Like, I didn't think of that. We'll have you back. Thank you so much for coming in today, my friend.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
All right, guys. Thanks for watching. I appreciate it. If you got any value out of this, just hit a like and subscribe. Just for fun. Love you guys. Talk to you soon.